Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and
to help one another. Can I blow it out?
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon when you are watching this. Whenever it is that you are joining us, let us affirm, it is good to be. It is good to be here. It is good to be here together. We are so blessed to have this village, this community of all ages located in Morris County in New Jersey and really all across the internet. We are also blessed to welcome newcomers every week. Welcome. If you are here for the first or one of your first times and it's during our Sunday morning premiere, please say hello in the comments or the chat so that we can greet you. And if you aren't on our weekly email list, please take the time to email welcome@muuf.org and share your name and email so that we can get you connected. There are lots of opportunities for connection, inspiration, and service coming up that you wouldn't want to miss out on. To those of you who have been here many times before, you know that we like to greet you too. Everyone who feels like it, please say hello in the chat or comments. And I invite you to add anything that's on your heart as you enter this sacred space. A centering thought, a prayer, or a joy or a sorrow from the week. A meaningful joy that we have shared in together over the course of these last months of the pandemic is that our congregation has been one of the founders of the Morris area chapter of New Jersey Together. This has allowed us to make a difference in the lives of our congregants and in the lives of our neighbors in the surrounding community. Today, our offering will be split between our fellowship and the Morris area, New Jersey Together. Thank you for your generosity. It will help our efforts to organize collectively around affordable housing, criminal justice, and mental health and addiction. By the way, the Mental Health and Addiction team launches Tuesday, December 1st at 7:30 p.m. and you are invited to take part. Go to www.njtogether.org/Morris to sign up. Yes, it is good to be. It is good to be here. It is good to be here and also with our interfaith neighbors acting for justice together. Welcome.
Good morning, and welcome to Fairy Tale News. I'm your host, Correspondent, and today we have a very special guest with us. A guest that we think we all know. But what if there was more to the story? You may remember the shocking, gruesome case of the three little pigs, the three young real estate developers who were brutally attacked in their homes last year. Two of those pigs didn't live to tell the tale, but according to our guest, it was the mainstream media that committed the real crime when they portrayed him as a vicious monster with an insatiable appetite for raw pork. Today, we bring you an exclusive interview with the Big Bad Wolf. Big Bad, thanks so much for joining us today.
Whoa. That's Alexander T. Wolf, but please, call me Al. I don't know how this whole Big Bad Wolf thing got started, but it's all wrong. Maybe it's because of our diet.
Hey, it's not my fault that wolves eat cute little animals like bunnies and sheep and pigs. That's just the way we are. I mean, if cheeseburgers were cute, folks would probably think that you were big and bad too. But like I was saying, the whole big bad wolf thing is all wrong. The real story is about a sneeze and a cup of sugar. This is the real story. So there I was, making a birthday cake for my dear, sweet old granny, and I had a terrible sneezing cold. I'd also just run out of sugar. So I walked down the street to ask my neighbor for a cup of sugar. Now this neighbor was a pig, and he wasn't too bright either. He had built his whole house out of straw. Can you believe it? I mean, who in his right mind would build a house of straw? So of course, the minute I knocked on the door, it fell right in. And I didn't want to just walk into someone else's house. So I called, little pig, are you in? No answer. I was just about to go home without the cup of sugar for my dear old granny's birthday cake. And that's when my nose started to itch. I felt a sneeze coming on. Well, I huffed, and I snuffed, and I sneezed a great sneeze. Achoo! And do you know what? That whole darn straw house fell down. And right in the middle of the pile of straw was the first little pig, dead as a doornail. He had been home the whole time. Well, I mean, it seemed like a shame to leave a perfectly good ham dinner just lying there in the straw. So I ate it up. Think of it as like a really big cheeseburger just lying there. I was feeling a little better, but I still didn't have my cup of sugar. So I went to the next neighbor's house, and this neighbor was the first little pig's brother. He was a little bit smarter, but not by much. He had built his house of sticks. So I rang the bell on the stick house, and nobody answered. I called, Mr. Pig, are you in? And then he yelled back, Go away, wolf! You can't come in. I'm shaving the hairs on my chinny chin. I had just grabbed the doorknob when I felt another sneeze coming on. So I huffed, and I snuffed, and I tried to cover my mouth, but I sneezed a great sneeze. Achoo! And you're not going to believe it, but this guy's house fell down just like his brother's. When the dust cleared, there was the second little pig, dead as a doornail. Wolf's honor. Now, you know, food will spoil if you just leave it out in the open. So I did the only thing there was to do. I had dinner. Again. Think of it as a second helping. I was getting awfully full, but my cold felt a little better. But I still didn't have that cup of sugar for my dear old granny's birthday cake. So along I went to the next house. This guy was the first and second little pig's brother. He must have been the brains of the family because he'd built his house of bricks. I knocked on the brick house and no answer. I called, Mr. Pig, are you in? And do you know what that rude little porker answered? Get out of here, wolf. Don't bother me again. Talk about impolite. He probably had a whole sack full of sugar, and he wouldn't give me even one little cup for my dear sweet granny's birthday cake. What a pig! I was just about to go home and maybe make a nice birthday card instead of a cake when I felt my cold coming on. I huffed, and I snuffed, and I sneezed once again. Achoo! And then the third little pig yelled, and your old granny can sit on a pin. Now, I'm usually a pretty calm fellow, but when somebody talks about my granny like that, I go a little crazy. when the cops drove up, of course I was trying to break down this pig's door, and the whole time I was huffing and puffing and sneezing and making a real scene.
The rest, they say, is history. The news reporters found out about the 2 pigs I had for dinner. They figured a sick guy going to borrow a cup of sugar didn't sound very exciting, so they jazzed up the story with all that huff and puff and blow your house down. And they made me the big bad wolf. That's it, the real story. I was framed. But maybe you could loan me a cup of sugar?
Well, there you have it, folks. Big and bad, or just caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. You decide. Join us next week for a special post-wedding sit-down conversation with the Frog Prince and his new princess. Is it happily ever after on the other side of the lily pad, or does he wish he'd never rescued her ball from that fountain? We'll find out together next week on Fairy Tale News.
A reading from the book of Numbers, chapter 16. Now Korah, along with Dathan and Abiram and On, took 250 Israelite men, leaders of the congregation, and they confronted Moses. They assembled against Moses and against Aaron and said to them, "You have gone too far. All the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. So why then do you exalt yourselves above the assembly of the Lord?" When Moses heard it, he fell on his face. Then he said to Korah and all his company, "In the morning the Lord will make known who is his and who is holy and who will be allowed to approach him. You Levites have gone too far." Then Moses said to Korah, "Is it too little for you that the God of Israel has separated you from the congregation of Israel to allow you to approach him in order to perform the duties of the Lord's tabernacle and to stand before the congregation and serve them? He has allowed you to approach him, and all your brother Levites with you, yet you seek the priesthood as well. Therefore you and all your company have gathered together against the Lord." Moses sent for Dathan and Abiram, sons of Eliab, but they said, "We will not come. Is it too little that you have brought us up out of a land flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the wilderness? That you must also lord it over us? We will not come." Moses was very angry and said to the Lord, "Pay no attention to their offering. I have not taken one donkey from them, and I have not harmed any one of them." And Moses said to Korah, "As for you and all your company, be present tomorrow before the Lord, you and they and Aaron." So each man stood at the entrance of the tent of meeting with Moses and Aaron. Then Korah assembled the whole congregation against them at the entrance of the tent of meeting. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Say to the congregation, get away from the dwellings of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram." He said to the congregation, "Turn away from the tents of these wicked men, and touch nothing of theirs, or you will be swept away for all their sins." As soon as he finished speaking all these words, the ground under them was split apart. The earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up, along with their households, everyone who belonged to Korah and all their goods. And fire came out from the Lord and consumed the 250 men.
This is the keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going on song. This is the keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going on song. This is the keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going on song. I am Abigail, and this is Sean, and we're so glad that you've turned this on and welcomed us into your home, and you are welcome into our home. We're in Dayton, Ohio. We're in Sean's parents' house.
My parents' house.
Sean's parents' house. We were in Louisville when the hit, and we packed our 3-year-old into a car. We drove kind of far. We drove here, and we've been so lucky and blessed to be safely here. And we thought we'd be here for like 10 days tops.
What did we know?
What did we know? What did we know? We thought we knew a lot. We thought we knew a lot.
Keep going, keep going,
Woo!
keep going on.
Keep going on song. This is a keep going, keep going, keep going on. Keep going on song. This is a keep going, keep going, keep going on. Keep going on song. And we've been mostly healthy. We've been okay. Are you okay? Are you alright? Are you okay? Are you alright? Are you okay? I hope your body is whole tonight. And if your heart is breaking, I hope it's breaking open. And if your breath is shaking, I hope it's shaking through. And I hope that you've watched a lot of really great television, like a lot of it. And I hope that you find a hand lotion that actually makes your skin feel better. And I hope that you have enough to eat. I hope you're getting enough sleep, and I hope you have enough good company or enough good memory to last you a long time. Keep going, keep going, keep going on. Keep going on song. We sing the keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going on. Keep going on song. Let's bring some joy into the room, why not? We could try it, or some rage, and some grief and relief. Ooh, I hold my rage, I pray my rage is a fire that cleans my mind out and makes me ready to listen. I pray my pain is a river that flows to the ocean that connects my pain to yours. And I pray my happiness is like pollen that flies to you and pollinates your joy. Oh boy, is that possible? I don't know. We are making this up as we go. We have to make it up as we go. The keep going song, the keep going song. Oh, we're making it up. We're making it up as we go. Keep going on. Keep going on song. And I pray that when we meet again, that the world has changed into the world that we are imagining now together. And I pray that the world has become the world that we're planting inside of ourselves for each other and for our ancestors and for our kids. Ooh, and we're gonna start. This is a rough beginning. That's all I've got is a rough beginning to offer you. We're gonna start by singing some songs in this tiny space together. We're just gonna sing some songs for you, and we hope that when you hear them, you will feel a little bit less alone, and we will feel a little bit less alone in the work and in the hurt, and we will be together tonight somehow, whenever this is, wherever this is. We will be together tonight for the keep going on. Keep going on song. This is a keep going on. Keep going on song. This is a keep going on. Keep going on song. This is a keep going on. Keep going on song. This is a keep going on. Keep going on.
We are a storytelling species. We've been telling stories for a very long time, and we tell our stories for a multitude of reasons. We tell them to remember, to explain, to celebrate, to lament, to inspire, to warn, and to imagine. Of course, the stories we tell can also be used to dominate, to control, and to oppress. Neuroscience has some insight on the topic of storytelling and brain chemistry. There are 3 organic chemicals most cited in the research about storytelling. The first is cortisol. When our brain thinks there is potential threat or something that we may need to remember, it produces cortisol, which increases attentiveness and aids in memory. The second chemical compound facilitates learning by rewarding us with a pleasure response. That compound is dopamine. Dopamine entices us to stick with the story. The third chemical is oxytocin, which promotes empathy and social cooperation. So you see, in a sense, the degree to which a story moves us to action is related, at least neurologically speaking, to this release of oxytocin. Of course, not every individual reacts to a story with an identical chemical response. The science doesn't guarantee a particular outcome, but it does help explain why some stories are particularly effective. In a 2009 study, Paul Zak, a professor at Claremont Graduate School, ran an experiment that suggested that subjects who produced the highest levels of oxytocin and cortisol in response to an empathetic story they were shown were more likely to donate money generously. Now, while I'm not suggesting a cocktail of cortisol, dopamine, and oxytocin as a tactic for the next pledge drive, there is something to be said for creating compelling narratives that tell a story. But there is something of a dark side to this neurobiology, because these processes are potentially in play to persuade someone to take action regardless of the nature of the truthfulness of the story. You know, in my view, the last few years have clearly illustrated the danger of propaganda. And the neuroscience warns us of an innate vulnerability to the stories that we are told. There's a documentary drama currently on Netflix called The Social Dilemma, and it addresses some of these themes. But to be clear, these are issues that have existed long before social media. So what are we to do? I mean, do we give up and throw in the towel because the process of our own evolution has left us susceptible to manipulation? Have we tread too far on the slippery slope of alternative facts to regain our footing? Well, I certainly hope that is not the case. And in fact, I would argue that as a liberal faith community, there are tools at our disposal which, if we are willing to utilize them, can help us navigate these sometimes turbulent waters. Perhaps even there's an opportunity for us to impact the larger communities of which we are a part. Now, using the text today from what is sometimes called Korah's rebellion in the Hebrew Scriptures, I suggest that a liberal religious perspective invites us to ask some important questions. Now, if we were physically together in the same room, I'd ask by a show of hands how many are familiar with this passage. I suspect in many UU congregations there would not be a lot of raised hands. Nevertheless, the story of Korah holds significance for all 3 of the Abrahamic faiths, for Judaism, for Christianity, and for Islam. And the story has a cast of characters. First, there's Moses. Yeah, you know that Moses, who, as the story goes, led the Hebrew people out of slavery in Egypt and brought down the 10 Commandments from the mountain. The Moses who, according to tradition, wrote the Torah. As is so often the case, when we find Moses, we also find his brother Aaron, the hand-picked chief priest. And in opposition to them are Korah, Dathan, Abiram, and On, and 250 unnamed Israelites. Now, it's pretty clear that Korah is the leader of this opposition and that the others are primarily background players. And the other major character in this story is the Lord God of Israel. The plot is pretty straightforward. Korah has assembled his supporters to confront the leadership of Moses and Aaron. That's the essential conflict. It's Korah versus Moses for all to see. You know, many good stories have great dialogue, and there are some zingers in this one. Korah gets to land some of the juiciest lines. "You have gone too far. All the congregation are holy. Why do you exalt yourselves above everyone else?" Moses, for his part, gets to retort, "You Levites have gone too far." And an angry Moses says to God about his opposition, "Pay no attention to their offering." The climax comes with Korah and his supporters literally on one side against Moses and Aaron on the other. And with the battle lines drawn, the only thing left is the judgment of the Lord God of Israel. It is decisive, no recount necessary. The ground splits open and swallows Team Korah, and for good measure, fire consumes the 250 co-conspirators. The completely vindicated Moses and Aaron are left to literally clean up the ashes. Now, it's not difficult to understand why this story was told and retold among the Abrahamic faith traditions. Dr. J. Harold Ellens, in the foreword of The Interpretation of Korah's Rebellion in Three Religious Traditions, says, its iconic value lies in the fact that every human being can identify a troubling situation in his or her own experience that seems to have the contours and dimensions of the Korah story. Whether one has been involved in the inevitable quarrels in a church, synagogue, or mosque, the Korah story provides the tensions, roles, and characters in every one of those quarrels. Identifying one's own struggle with the Korah story provides any human with the basis for justifying his or her own cause as that of the righteous, and the case of their opponent as that of the person who is against oneself, God, and the good of the community. One of the questions to ask of this story is, why do I want to tell this story? Well, this story is compelling because in a way it is so relatable. I mean, who among us hasn't found ourselves in the midst of conflict? And not only conflict in a religious context, but any conflict. We experience family conflict, political conflict, social conflict, even inner conflict. And I know from my own experience what it feels like to be, at least from my own perspective, unjustly and unfairly attacked. If only I could be so clearly vindicated as Moses, perhaps without the splitting of the ground and the fire, but justification nonetheless. How tempting to embrace that surge of cortisol, dopamine, and oxytocin. What's the appeal in this story? Is it not at least in part to have my opinion, my position, my perspective validated? But this is where my liberal religious lens becomes critical, because that lens does not allow me to stop after that first question. You see, a foundational tenet of a liberal faith is an uncompromising commitment to self-criticism. In Unitarian Universalism, we espouse that revelation is not sealed. We must always be willing to reconsider even our most cherished ideals in light of our direct experience. So to that end, I suggest that a second question to ask of this text is, what does this story want to tell me? You see, the very best stories almost always contain surprises. This often means looking for the tension within the story that lies just under the surface. Sometimes this requires re-examination of my underlying assumptions. It invites me to ask, in this case, what if Korah has a valid point? In this scenario, between Moses and Korah, is there a power differential? Well, the answer is clearly yes. Moses has far more power. The claim of Korah is that all the congregation are holy. That doesn't sound so unreasonable. I mean, what if this is not the story of a demagogue Korah trying to incite rebellion, but instead an honest attempt to speak truth to power? If we are willing to see it, there is ambiguity in this story. Again, hear the words of Dr. Ellens. It is hard to tell from the story whether Moses is an abusive dictator who needs to be challenged for the good of the community, or whether he is on the side of the angels, so to speak, with divine authority certifying him. One can play both ends against the middle by projecting one's own struggle on that old Korah screen. You see, my point is not that we need to decide definitively whether Korah is a villain or a hero. In fact, it is openness to the possibility of something beyond that rigid binary thinking that is worth considering. Being willing to allow the text to speak in all its ambiguity actually elevates the text and reveals a deeper richness in the story. It is not only the stories we wish to tell, but the possibilities that the stories have something unexpected to tell us, something deeper about ourselves. Another question I would ask of this text is, who isn't represented in this story? And in particular, what is noticeably absent in this entire exchange is the role of women. Now, are we really expected to believe that a movement contemplating potential rebellion against Moses contains not a single female voice? This is especially complicated by the highly gendered nature of the Hebrew language. Every word in Hebrew is categorized as being male or female. And moreover, the grammatical rules of the language stipulate that in a mixed gender group, if thousands of women were present, A single male presence means that the group is described in a masculine way. A liberal religious perspective should always ask, who is getting left out of this story? In this passage, Moses and Aaron hold the reins of leadership, but in actuality, the leadership is Moses, Aaron, and their sister Miriam. So where is Miriam? Well, she's essentially been written out of the story a few chapters before in another confrontation with the leadership of Moses. Seems there may be a pattern here. But alas, that will have to be a sermon for another day. Our stories are powerful. The very telling of a story alters our brain chemistry. Our own stories can empower us, but they can also limit us. So my question for each of you is, what might we discover if we dare to question the very stories we tell?
We laugh, we cry, we live, we die. We dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a need to be together. We have our hearts to give. We have our thoughts to receive, and we believe that sharing is an answer. A child is born among us, and we feel a special glow. We see time's endless journey as we watch the baby grow. We thrill to hear imagination freely running wild. We dedicate our minds and hearts to the spirit of this child. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a time to be together. And with the grace of age, we share the wonder of youth. And we believe that growing is an answer. Our lives are full of wonder, and our time is very brief. The death of one among us fills us all with pain and grief. But as we live, so shall we die, and when our lives are done, the memories we shared with friends, they will linger on and on. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a place to be together. We have the right to grow. We have the gift to believe that peace within our living is an answer. We seek elusive answers to the questions of this life. We seek to put an end to all the waste of human strife. We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind. And then we come together here to make sense of what we find. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. and we have found a joy being together. And in our search for peace, maybe we'll finally see, even to question truly is an answer.
Sometimes we tell our stories, and sometimes our stories tell us. As we extinguish our chalice, we go forth to both tell and be made known in the telling.
Come, whoever you are. Come, whoever you are. You've broken your vows 1,000 times.
lover